Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Free Your Data, Hybrid Cloud Storage Services. We are going to get rolling here in just a moment. I see people are still rolling in. Some of us here on the West Coast of the United States are getting into the office now, I presume. Others are probably a few hours into the day. We welcome all of you, and now that you're getting settled, we're going to get started. My name is Greg Newman. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Zadara. I have Mark Levitt joining me shortly. He's our Senior Director of Product Marketing. He was pulled away on a conference call because we serve our customers. We'll talk more about that as we go through the webinar, but we are a services company after all. So let's get rolling. Today's agenda, everybody. You can see here we have a little bit of a discussion around hybrid storage sprawl, and we're going to define what that means. I'm sure anybody who's experienced it knows exactly what I'm talking about. And we'll talk a little bit about a streamlined data storage strategy, a way that we believe you can really throw a rope around a sprawling system and make some sense of it. And then we'll dive a little bit more deeply into that topic by highlighting a few key requirements for hybrid cloud storage. And then, of course, as usual, we'll leave some time for Q&A. Well, very good. I hope that makes sense to everybody. And without further ado, let's get rolling here. Hybrid storage sprawl. Those of you that are looking at this diagram and nodding your heads will know exactly what I'm talking about. You're operating in multiple locations. You have data going to and from multiple locations. Those data, of course, need to serve multiple users. They need to perform multiple functions, and it is not something that is easily achieved in a traditional model. And so many people's data storage systems have grown up to look a little bit like this. As an example, you may have an on-prem system that you've had for a while, and it's terrific. And you have people in DevOps accessing it, for instance. But your field sales organization has really grown over the years. And you may have remote offices now, and everybody needs to get their hands on those data. So, of course, what do? You add maybe, or better yet, let me say it this way, somebody in your organization, maybe not IT, adds a hyperscale public cloud storage system because they think that sounds like a good idea. And in many ways, it is a good idea. But now you have another system running somewhere else, and those data need to be accounted for, and in many cases, they need to be integrated. And that cannot necessarily be easily accomplished. So we're stuck, or it appears like we're stuck when we get into a hybrid storage scheme and we find ourselves, without necessarily having planned for it, we find ourselves in a situation that looks a little bit like this. So let's take a step back and let's ask ourselves, what are the requirements for hybrid cloud storage? What do we really need to or want to address in order to ensure that we have a hybrid cloud storage system that's going to meet our needs now and in the future? And so in the coming slides, we're going to talk a little bit about scalability, availability, affordability, let's not overlook that, control, obviously that's paramount, it's fundamental, and connectivity. And we save the best for last there. And when we look at that slide, you'll know why. Okay, let's dive right in, shall we? Rock solid scalability. We're not just talking about scalability, we're talking about rock solid scalability. And that matters. Storage capacity and the performance, they need to be able to scale up and down and out to support your evolving requirements. The interesting thing about that statement, and those of us that administer storage for a living can attest to this, is that evolving requirements is a very nice way of saying, I'm not quite sure what the future holds. I need to keep my options open, and that can be very difficult to do in an environment where you need to make big bets on the future. In other words, you need to, in a legacy environment, you need to bet on what it is that you will be, what will be demanded of the system, let's say, in the coming years, because after all, you're making a multi-year bet when you're purchasing legacy storage. And in a public cloud environment where your options are limited, you're also making a bet that your needs won't change and you won't have to perform a data migration of some kind. That can really be difficult in the environment we operate in today, where we know that things are really evolving rapidly. So you can see here, the way we like to address it at Zadara is what we believe very straightforward and frankly rather clever. This is a diagram of our system and how we've organized things so that we provide the benefits of multi-tenancy. And those benefits, of course, are convenience and efficiency. And we combine those with the security and the control of a single tenant environment. And it's easily understood when you look at the diagram and you see three different users, and they're colored green, blue, and purple to signify that they are different users and performing slightly different functions. So user number one has a storage array that's all his own, and while it may go across shared nodes inside the storage architecture that we've provided, it is in fact totally isolated. The drives are isolated, and the controllers, the cores are isolated. And that goes for user number two, who has a much bigger array, therefore has a bigger engine, our 400 series, and we can talk later about those engines. But of course, matching the right engine to the array makes a big difference in terms of how it performs. And we provide all kinds of guidance on that, and we provide all kinds of choices to our users so that they can custom tailor a solution that meets their needs. And then lastly, at the bottom, you see we have an object storage customer, and we do provide, in our case here at Zadara, we provide a single system that has within it the ability to do block, file, and object, a unified system. Again, it's about choices, it's about control, and it's about scalability without necessarily knowing what the future holds. Availability is a topic that is so wide-ranging. Well, as you can see from this slide, we have 4 subtopics within the topic of availability that we know matter to our customers. And we know that the one thing that they ask about is, I know I've got some recovery point objectives and time objectives. I need to know that I can meet those, and I need tools in order to do that. Here at Zadara, we like to solve that by having the ability to provide mirroring. You can see that in the top left. Snapshots are a big deal in the way in which they work and the control that they give you. Multi-zone high availability is exactly what it says. There's tremendous flexibility in the way you design a high availability system using our architecture. And we would encourage anybody who's developing a storage system in a hybrid environment to be sure that you have that kind of flexibility, because in order to create an availability scheme that will meet your needs, you need to be sure you're not locked in, either locked into technology or locked into geography. You have to have that ability. And then the last thing that we show on this slide, and it's a very popular option, is backup to object storage. This can take place in a number of ways, and you can see by this diagram that we offer, and we think it's an important option, is the ability to back up to third-party object storage. Again, when you're operating in a hybrid environment, it's very important you keep in mind that you are not isolating yourself from any options at any time. And we believe very strongly in that. Here at Zadara, we're partners with all of the major public cloud providers and provide a route into those and out of those clouds so that our users and our customers can devise the best long-term data availability, backup, and disaster recovery schemes that fit their needs. I mentioned affordability at the top. That's not something we want to overlook. Let's take a look. Let's see what affordability looks like in the context of a hybrid cloud storage scheme as we envision it here at Zadara. As you know, cloud. What does cloud mean? Let's take a moment here, take a breath, and ask ourselves. So often, cloud gets confused, right? And cloud means a destination. I'm going to the cloud. Well, we all know, of course, by now that's not true. Cloud is an operating model, and it really is a pay-as-you-go model, and it has wonderful benefits. And so, while we want to take advantage of the cloud model, it's not always possible. And in the public cloud, I should say, to take advantage, the full advantage of everything that it offers. Nevertheless, we look at the cloud and we understand that it is the future. And so here at Zadara, what we've done is we've taken a look at how we can pair the best of the cloud with the best of legacy. And what we found, interestingly, was that we had advantages. We have advantages not only over legacy, no surprise, right? When you do a pay-as-you-go model, as the blue line indicates, all the public cloud services, you're going to be cheaper. It's just a fact. But the public cloud services we discovered, and the evaluator group, one of our analysts here, an analyst that I'm sure you're all familiar with, did a study, a 10-year study, and found something really interesting, which was that thanks to the limitations on some of the storage media choices and some of the options that are limited in the public cloud as compared to what you would get in a legacy environment where you can design it yourself, and where you and the environment you can design for yourself without any limitations. At Zadara, Zadara's combination of total choice and total flexibility in the cloud model means that there's about a 50% overall difference in cost, even compared to the cloud services. It was a really interesting finding, and we didn't necessarily think there would be that big of a difference. We kind of suspected, because we know, we were providing things that extend the cloud services and do more and enhance the cloud services. But we were surprised. What we discovered is that our users were relying on the fact that they could choose the cheaper storage media where needed, and not necessarily be locked into something like SSDs, where they may find that HDDs are just fine for their purposes. So a very interesting finding, and I would encourage anybody looking at a hybrid cloud storage scheme to keep in mind that those kinds of choices can have real world impact on your costs, as you can see here. Of course, any choice you make in a hybrid storage scheme, if you're an enterprise user, needs to be kept, needs to be made with control in mind. You need to keep in mind that control, the kind of control that we're talking about on this screen, really matters. And the reason it matters, of course, is that you are going to be encountering all kinds of different requirements for different workloads. Enterprise storage, those of us that do it for a living, we know it's complicated. Nobody would pretend that it's simple. And anybody who's telling you otherwise is either not familiar with storage, enterprise storage as it's truly practiced and operated, or they're selling you something. And so let's talk in real terms about what's needed. And that means that you need to be prepared to handle different workloads securely and efficiently. And we see on this screen just some of the ways in which you ought to be able to control, or some of the things, the features and functionality that you ought to bring to the enterprise storage system that you devise for your hybrid cloud storage scheme. No surprise, it just so happens that everything you see on this screen, we do here at Zadara. We know that this is important to our users. These types of features and functions were developed starting in 2011 when we started the company, and were rolled out over time. And it's a good example of what's on offer with Zadara right now, and we continue to add to it as we see the need from the marketplace and from our customers in particular. But some of these things are so fundamental. They came right from the outset. Our at-rest and in-flight data encryption, of course, security being absolutely critical. Later developments included things like our all-flash and dedupe, and we have, stay tuned, everybody. We're going to have a very interesting announcement, by the way, at VMworld. It's going to involve an enhancement to our storage media. Well, we know it's not a media option, but certain storage protocols that have gotten very popular, NVMe, we all know that name now. It's become very popular. Be on the lookout for an announcement next week on that. And then some of the other control features you see here are really important to users. Let me pick on a couple here: large volume sizes and thin provisioned volumes. Let's put those together. We know that you can't do those types of things in a public cloud environment. You have limitations, I should say, and those limitations are gone, and you get much more of what you would expect in a legacy environment. You get that with the Zadara storage environment and our storage service. Okay, I promised that I would save the best for last when it comes to what we believe here at Zadara you ought to be thinking about in a hybrid storage environment. If you remember the slide we showed at the outset with hybrid storage sprawl, then you'll recall that we had at the top of that diagram our on-premises environment, service provider cloud environment, your colo in other words, right? Hyperscale public cloud environment, and then beneath there at the bottom, the various use cases or users that you might encounter in a typical enterprise storage environment. I'm sure that all of us can think of more users or more use cases, but this half a dozen here is a pretty good cross-section of what most of us encounter when we're administering enterprise storage systems, whether it's remote offices or IT operations, field sales. Big data analytics has become a heavy user, right, of data. And you can see in the middle now, instead of having that rather messy looking graphic with arrows going to and from all of the different storage systems that reside in the various locations, we have now one centralized, single, and unified storage system that gives users the ability to store information where it's generated and to make it available where it's needed. And that can only be possible when you have a hybrid cloud storage system that's been designed from the ground up to work in the way that we've been talking about in these last slides. In other words, it gives you the ability to roll out a storage system, including physical hardware, on-prem, and to roll out physical hardware at your colo, and to tap into physical hardware that's adjacent to the public cloud and in one of our 200 plus data centers, so that you can create a unified system that shares data, talks amongst the different nodes, and serves users in all sorts of far-flung locations and with all sorts of different requirements. Now, when you dig a little more deeply into this diagram, you'll notice something interesting, and that is that we have in our green colored layer, we have our virtual private object store and our storage array. That's the storage itself, right? Those signify the storage that's available to users. And the storage media, of course, you'll see that we have HDD and SSD, either over SAS or NVMe. And that storage is, of course, the heart and soul of what we offer, but it wouldn't be everything without the integrated data services and applications that you see in the blue layer. That is very important, of course, to the accomplishment of any kind of an enterprise storage scheme, because it's providing that functionality that we all expect. In our case, you can see some of the things listed here. We have, in no particular order, we have integrated backup. Not only do we have backup integrated thanks to our own backup to object storage, we also work with partners like Veeam and Commvault and Asigra to provide third-party backup integrated with our storage. And if that's interesting, and it is very interesting to many of our customers, they take advantage of it, that I would encourage anybody on this particular webinar to go learn more about it at our website, where you'll find materials dedicated to talking about backup and that use case and how we work. We have high availability. We talked about that earlier. We have distributed file system and file share. We have Microsoft and capability to run storage just as you would expect with Active Directory integration, and there's lots more to talk about with that, and I would encourage you, if you're interested, again, to visit our website. Containers, interesting, we have integrated Docker containers. We included that in a release about a year or two ago, and it's been very popular and getting increasingly popular because there's so much neat stuff you can do by running containers in the storage. It really provides for an efficient way to run certain apps and workloads, and so we're finding that it's getting increasingly popular. So you can see that by the combination of our storage systems and the integrated data services and apps, some of which we provide and some of which are provided by third parties and partners of ours, we have created a full-fledged hybrid cloud storage service that provides all of the benefits of an enterprise storage system that you might expect to build and to operate in a legacy model and environment, with all of the convenience, efficiency, and flexibility of a cloud model. So we have taken a tour of what we believe are the important elements in a hybrid cloud storage scheme. Hybrid cloud storage is driving a lot of the need that we see in our market and with our customers. But the use cases for the kind of flexible and capable enterprise storage service that we provide, the use cases abound. I mean, whether it's something as simple as thinking about a more efficient backup scheme, like I alluded to a moment ago, or whether you simply want to look at being more efficient with your storage in a 100% dedicated on-prem environment, the cloud model on site can be a very compelling way to go. And it's not just the money you save up front, although that's terrific. This is about, and all of us, again, who administer storage for a living know the real impact here. This is about the impact it has on your operations, the ability to reduce risk in the technology purchase. In other words, not being stuck if you want to upgrade at any time in the Zadara model and in the cloud model, you can do that. That's not before been possible. And even frankly now, when you look at, to give me a moment to take a quick swipe at some of our competitors, when you look at some of the competitors' offerings, whether it's from terrific companies who make great products like HPE or NetApp or Pure or Dell EMC, those offerings, those services offerings, the new ones, and you know them, probably you've seen them, they've been advertising quite a bit lately, they're all left wanting. They're all incomplete because these legacy vendors are locked into a legacy model and they are stuck with storage systems that in many cases are not unified. They're stuck with a model whereby they need to be pushing product, and we understand it's tough to turn a big ship. But the fact is that it's not really serving customers' needs particularly well when you dress up your services offering, you dress up as a services offering, your glorified financing scheme, basically. It looks like a lease. It's just another name for a lease. And so we encourage all of our customers, whether you choose Zadara or not, to be informed, to understand what you're getting yourself into, and ask yourself simple questions. If I truly want to embrace a services model, what are the things I need to look for? And this list on this screen, I believe, captures that. Be sure that you're getting a fully managed storage service, not a lease. And fully managed matters. Before I go down the rest of the list, I'm going to take a moment to point out that management, and the management that we provide here in particular at Zadara, we believe is an important part of a services offering. When somebody thinks about the pain that they suffer with storage, and it's true, of course, across IT, but we're focused on storage, a big part of that pain, of course, is just simply keeping these complex systems running. And when you think about relieving that pain and going to, say, the public cloud, that's not a full solution, is it? Nothing wrong with going to the public cloud because there's lots of benefits to be had. But if you're looking for total relief, you only get that total relief when you are getting help and getting the kind of services that we happen to offer here at Zadara. You need a partner. You need somebody to stand shoulder to shoulder with you and to help you in a proactive manner to manage that storage. And that's exactly the kind of service we provide. So it's not about customer support, although that's important and we provide that too. It's about somebody taking a look at your storage on an ongoing basis, a proactive basis, providing notifications and alerts. And of course, many of those notifications and alerts, at least in the Zadara system, are automated. But that doesn't stop our DevOps team, which is located on 4 continents. We like to say the sun never sets on Zadara, to borrow a phrase. That doesn't prevent the DevOps team from keeping an eye out for for issues that might arise with the management of your storage, things like maybe nearing limits on capacity and alerting you to that and helping to make a smooth transition to either add capacity or shift gears. That's not something you're going to find in other storage services. And we do encourage you, if you're looking for hybrid cloud storage, to keep in mind that a fully managed service is a big part of what it means, we believe, to relieve the pain. We talked earlier about full enterprise functionality and control. And so I won't delve more deeply into that, but you know what that means. And we just spent some time on a slide about making sure your data can be gathered anywhere those data are generated and presented anywhere those data are needed. And to do that, you need to make sure that you can do block, file, and object storage, and having it in a single service is really the ideal way to do that. Otherwise, you're just adding to your chore and the complexity. We talked earlier about dedicated resources. I can't say enough about that. Without it, you're just going to be struggling to try to run an enterprise storage scheme with the kind of workloads you need to run and the kind of performance you need to get out of it. And it's not just about high performance, right? We all know it's about predictable performance. You need to make sure that whatever you are looking for in terms of performance, that you can count on that day in and day out. And you're not going to get that in a public cloud storage environment because you're sharing resources, and it's just a fact. Now, here's something that I love because we don't talk enough about it in the marketplace in general, and I think it's important to highlight. You may want to shrink from time to time. It happens, right? A good example is a DevOps project that may spin up, and you're doing some great work, and you're going to have an end to that project. You need storage, and maybe you need very specific storage with specific performance requirements, or you need lots of it. And what kind of investment do you really want to make in that storage? To be able to pay only for consumption and to truly be able to grow and shrink without penalty is something that we encourage everyone to look for in their hybrid cloud storage scheme. And no surprise, we provide that here at Zadara. We talked earlier about hardware upgrades and how important that is when you don't know what the future holds. We provide on-demand hardware upgrades. If you decide that you want to move from an HDD-based system for particular data, particular workload, and you say SSD is really where you need to be, no problem. If you don't have it and you're on-prem, we ship it out to you. If you're at a colo or in one of our clouds, we help you make the data migration. There's no cost, there's no penalty for moving storage media, and your price may go up or down. You know, your pay-as-you-go price may go up or down depending on what you've provisioned and what you're using. I gave you a sneak peek that we're going to be making an NVMe announcement next week. We all know that NVMe, in certain scenarios, holds out the promise of maybe even reducing costs. That's certainly what our studies have shown, and that's part of the reason why we're so excited to introduce it next week. These are the kinds of conversations we love getting in with our customers, because we know that it's about a service. It's not about a particular storage media, and it's not about a particular cost or a particular choice on a given day. It's about a partnership and rolling forward together. And of course, the last point on our particular list, the things that we encourage our customers to look for, remote monitoring, I mentioned earlier, and 24/7 phone support. It's absolutely imperative that you have a partner that's there for you. 24/7 is going to help you monitor and administer that storage service on an ongoing basis and in a proactive manner. Okay, so as you can tell at this point of the webinar, I sure do love to talk. And I like to talk about Zadara, and I like to talk about these issues because we encounter these all the time. And you know, part of the mission we're on here, and we do regard it as a mission, is to help people in businesses of all sizes to run their storage more effectively and more efficiently. We absolutely believe in that mission. And so I hope that today's webinar and the things we've covered have given you a good idea for what to look for in a storage system. I'm pleased to report that I am now joined by Mark Levitt, our Senior Director of Product Marketing. Mark, I know you had to step away to help on a customer issue. Glad you could be with us today. Thank you.
Yeah, very glad to be back on the phone.
Good, thank you. So what we're talking about in the coming minutes here, before we open it up to Q&A, is a little bit of that, you know, hey, who are you guys, Zadara? Glad to hear from you today. You're a new option to me, don't know you. Well, let's talk a little bit about Zadara. You know, we've been around, Mark, you know this, doing pretty impressive work for a long time, but we don't spend a lot of time tooting our own horn, do we?
Well, yeah, I mean, some would argue not enough. And actually, the slide that you flashed up just for a second ago with all the badges and all the names on it.
Let's go back to it.
Yeah, I think the important takeaway here is, of course, everybody likes to talk about the customers that we have that you've heard of, and there's some pretty good names on there. But more importantly and more relevant to the audience, I think, is the fact that many of those, if not most of them, actually represent distinct use cases. They're doing different kinds of things. And to be able to do that, you've got to have the flexibility. You've got to have the options to prevent, as you said before, to present the file, the object, the block storage, different grades of storage, different performance tiers. And it's that flexibility that lets us address that kind of broad range of projects. Also, just to toot one other thing, because you did hit it, and I want to actually take it to a specific customer, the ability to scale down. And you're actually right. Special projects, dev projects are where that really shows up. We have customers who, and one in particular I'm thinking of, is scaling from 0 to 2.5 petabytes and back down to 0 over the course of about, well, they're originally 3 years. It's looking more like 3.5 years now. And that's just the program, right? That's what they know they're going to do. They needed to be able to scale up and scale down. And when they're all done, it just wants to go away.
A large photonics maker, I believe. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
possibly.
Yes.
Well, there's yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, there's more than one then.
Oh, excuse me. And it's funny. We have a number of customers now, and they're doing the same or similar things. It's interesting.
Well, but they're doing different things, but they're doing it with the same tools, and that's the point. Is the tools have to be flexible. All right, so I probably beat that one. And the next slide was the.
Let's take up. So we've got a couple of customers here. Guild is a fun one because a lot of folks know the name and the fact that they're in a business where you know, a lot of what is talked about in their business is the front end. They talk a lot about the e-commerce portal and how great it is and everything they're doing there, but none of it could be possible without a solid back end and a storage.
Right, and it's solid and agile. And these are the things they're looking at. Is you know, in some ways, it's a classic unstructured data project that they started with, which is all the images, and they needed a lot of images, and they needed to distribute them, and the ability to do that and to spin it up. You know, as it says here, to be able to add new capacity. Instead of being days, it was down to minutes, right? And reduce their overall storage costs, you know, full cycle storage costs down by 85%. That translates across a lot of different use cases. The ability to be more agile, save money, and in the end, it was about accelerating their business. The quicker they can get those images in place, the sooner they can start taking orders. That's the way it works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So this is not you know, it's nice that they save 85%, but what they mostly did is they accelerated their ability to pursue their business.
Exactly, and it's so funny when we talk to our customers who, although they came into this relationship with us with a pretty good idea of what to expect, because we spend good time speaking with everybody and explaining the benefits. The one thing that I hear over and over from customers is, wow, what an impact our services have on their business.
Right. Yeah, and that's an aspect of the point you keep making about Zadara. The closer you look, the better we look.
Yeah.
The more experience you have with us, the more positive it is, and the service team is an enormous part of that.
Yeah.
It's not just hey, we'll open a ticket and we'll get to you when we can.
The relief that they get from having to handle the burden of storage management on their own is huge, and it's almost impossible to paint a picture that's vivid enough to I think carefully and accurately portray the comments that I hear from customers. I'm trying very hard, and I can't find the words to say. You know.
But I think for a lot of people that have experience getting support for IT infrastructure, the difference is that these are not level 1 call center people. They are experienced storage and DevOps engineers.
Right.
And so it's a whole different level of interaction.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And maybe the way to think about it, the words maybe are coming to me, which is, it's like you've added to your team. It's like Zadara is
that's
now
exactly that's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
So here's one manufacturer. I was thinking of these guys, but it's a different use case. You're right. These guys are on my mind because, of course, we put this slide together, and it's interesting.
Well, this is a great use case.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. And I was talking earlier, Mark, I know you were on the call, another call, AWS cloud integration with S3. I was talking about how that kind of flexibility and the ability to integrate with these public clouds absolutely should be a part of anybody's storage scheme. And, and we know that and knew that from the outset, which is why we're partners with all of the public cloud providers.
Right. Yeah, and AWS is a really important partner, and S3 is a really important offering. You know, the ability to provide, you know, cost-effective, large-scale object store in the cloud is a big part of most people's hybrid solutions.
Yep. We've only shown 2 use cases here because I wanted to leave time for questions, and it's too bad, because there's so many fun use cases to talk about.
Right. So check out the website.
Yes.
Take a look at see which ones tickle your interest, and take a look at those.
Yeah.
There are a bunch, and there are always more coming. Yep. But let's talk about this.
Yeah. While you're at the website, check out the free trial, because there's really no better way to see whether Zadara is right for you and whether it fits with what you're doing.
Right. Everybody, it's easy to sit there and tell you how wonderful we are, and we also told you that we think the closer you look at us, the better you're going to like us. So we really would like you to take a close look. And as Greg says, I mean, you can't just like spin up a disk drive and try it out for a day. That's not what this is. So 30 days, pretty good offer. And of course, the intent is then for you to put a workload that you care about out there, and to experience the onboarding process and the service process, and really take advantage of the offer to see how it applies to your situation.
And our solutions architects and our DevOps engineers and support are going to walk you through every step.
From the beginning to understanding the requirement and what it needs to be, to presenting it to your servers and taking off.
One of the things we didn't show in here, Mark, but it's a good time to mention it, is our web-based interface. If you're familiar as a storage admin with an administration interface that allows you to, spin up arrays and do all the things you would do in any virtualized storage environment, you're going to be real familiar with our interface.
Yeah. I mean, the key pieces are all under the covers, right? These are virtual arrays, and they're built a certain way, but in the end, they present storage to you, and you decide how you want your volumes to look and where to put them on servers, and it's a very, and that's been the comment, right? I mean, from people experienced with storage interfaces, they go, oh, I get it.
Right, exactly. And so we're at 9:13 local time. It seems like we ought to take some questions, and I just opened up the panel. I see we're getting questions. So let's dive into a few.
Yeah, you're gonna have to read them to me though, because I left my glasses with the phone.
I have a question here from somebody asking about backup. Oh, backup is a great use case, and we do it all the time.
Super important. In fact, well, we just announced the Veeam relationship.
Yeah.
Which plays that, but it ties together a lot of things. I mean, so backup is a piece, right? It's a very, very important piece, and we, again, with the flexibility and agility models, we have we have really good solutions for people with fairly modest requirements that don't need a lot of enterprise features across lots of different storage platforms and lots of you can get that directly from us. If you need a true enterprise package that will back up all your data no matter where it is, not just back it up, but also manage the copies and everything, then we partner with people like with Veeam, who we're very excited to have the partnership with. So those are solutions for it. But don't lose sight of the fact that the other aspect, I don't know if you covered this, Greg, about people who start with us is they start with us on a project, and then they use us for lots of different projects also as they get used to it. So don't lose sight of the fact that you can start with backup. Great place to start. But consider the option that you can also get all of the storage, all the tiers for your backup from one place.
Yep.
Right. So you can, and when you're doing the complex, the more complex backups, when we're talking about like a Veeam, that actually pays dividends in terms of simplifying what otherwise could get to be a fairly complex diagram.
Yeah, exactly. So
solution guide coming momentarily.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, this is a good thing to have. Which reminds me, real quick, I was just in our knowledge base yesterday looking for an answer to something, and I was impressed. I get in there once in a while. I'm not in there as often as others, and I forget just how much stuff is in there. There's just an incredible amount of articles. And I was reading one happened to be from Yair, who's our VP of engineering. And it was really thorough and well done. I'm so happy. I can't tell you. I mean, I got the answer I needed right away. It was great. Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about some other aspects. We have a question here. What is it? How does it work on-prem? I mean, I'm summarizing, but basically, how does it work on-prem?
It works exactly the same way, or as closest to exactly the same way as it does when it's in the cloud, which is you work with your sales team, your partner. You come with a configuration. We deliver the hardware to support that to your premises. you get billed for what you use. So we tend to stash some additional capacity there so we can turn it on quickly. But it's the same operating model, same pricing. It's if you're on premises, fine. If you're in the cloud,
I think you just answered the question that I hear arise most often, which is when they say, well, what do you mean, how does it work? We take the risk of shipping extra capacity. We know that.
Sure.
And the way we take that risk is actually quite logical. We sit with you, we hear your needs, we project out into the future what we believe your needs are going to be, and then that's our risk to take, not yours.
Right. And the other leg of that is so that's all certainly true. But the other leg is that we've been doing this for 8 years or
yeah,
so,
we've been doing this
7.5 years, whatever it is. And so we have a long baseline on our own,
right,
to understand what that looks like. And so we're pretty confident, and nobody, I mean, our operations team is very comfortable understanding what capacity needs to be in place. But again, a very big piece of it, like I say, is on the front end and working with the solutions architecture teams.
I have a question here that I think is very interesting, and that is, if my equipment is already in a colo, and Zadara has equipment located in that same colo, our Zadara storage cloud is already up and running.
Mm-hmm.
Can I connect to Zadara for on-demand storage via the colo's network, such as a cross connect?
Yeah. So the generic answer to that is yes. And then the follow-on is, look, let's get into the specifics again. Give us a call and let's talk about who we're talking about and what the steps are. But in general, the answer is yeah, absolutely. For us, that would be the equivalent of just a cloud adjacent application. We're in the colo, you're in the colo, so cool, right? Let's just work the cross connect and you access our storage cloud, and it's that much simpler because then you don't have to worry about in your piece of the colo, you don't have to worry about the rack space or anything like that.
Yeah. So I like that question. That was nice.
That's right. Give that man an extra chance to win the Oculus at VMworld.
Oh, that's right, at VMworld. We should mention that. So we're going to be at VMworld next week, and any of you who might be going to VMworld, we encourage you to come by the booth. You can see a little bit more about Zadara and get a chance to win an Oculus Quest,
right,
which I did for the first time yesterday.
That's right.
And I really liked it.
Finally got you to do it.
It was fun. I had a good time. That was fun. I'd like to win that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, everybody in marketing and a bunch of people in sales are going.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
I'm sorry, Zadara. You're not allowed to win. I'm sorry, but yeah, it was fun. They're $400. Those things. It's I didn't understand it until I did it. Now I get it. It's fun.
Yeah.
Hey, let me make a comparison. I didn't fully understand the value of Oculus Quest till I did it. Same with Zadara.
So you're saying that the closer you looked at the Oculus Quest, the better it looked.
Yes.
Okay. Just checking in. All right.
Yeah. Funny. And so, all right. So we have another question. I'm curious about public cloud and how you integrate with the public cloud. And they didn't say which cloud, but we integrate with all of them. So basically the same answer.
Right. The basic model is the same. So what we do is we operate, as it kind of leading off the last question, right? We have space in data centers that are adjacent to the public cloud data centers. And so that gives us a low latency connectivity to anything that's in a given public cloud. And we have, let's see, so I think we're up to 19 now sites that are we have, obviously several hundred sites or a couple hundred sites, but I think there's something like, now we're up to like 19 cloud adjacent data centers. So the specifics do matter. We have great coverage in general. Reach out to us and tell us which clouds you really want to talk to, and we'll work with you from there.
All right, good. We are getting near the end. We have a minute more or so before our time is up, and so I want to make sure we cover off. There's a question about costs, and this is frequently misunderstood. I'd like to start the first part of this answer, Mark, and I want you to please help me because this is an important topic. we talk about scaling up and down, so everybody understands your costs are going to vary, right? That's fine. I showed a chart earlier, and you're familiar with it, Mark. It's the evaluator group chart and how we are much cheaper over time. It's important for everybody to understand that any study like that is going to be based on the data that's gathered, and those data are going to be painting a picture. And in the case of the evaluator group, we think it's a very complete and accurate picture. Your mileage may vary, but it's not going to vary much, because what we find about our costs, it's so interesting, is that you can custom tailor the storage system to your needs, and the comparison there is with legacy storage and all that means, and the costs associated, whether you're buying it or leasing it, and then with public cloud storage. And there's a misperception that storage in the public cloud is cheap. Those who use it know it's not as cheap as you thought it was going to be.
That's often a rude awakening.
And that's what our study shows. And so some people are nodding their heads and some people are shaking their heads, I'm sure.
Right.
And the other thing to keep in mind, and this is important, this is enterprise class storage. This is not Dropbox.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dropbox we're not picking on Dropbox. Love Dropbox.
Yeah.
But we have a whole different gig. And yeah, I'm sorry. Those are the points you wanted to make?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So let me just say, so the comparison is different between the traditional storage and the cloud storage. The cloud storage, as you say, is a function of, and if you just think about that chart, right? We're both very linear, because in both cases you tend to pay for what you're using. We can quibble the details later, but it's also true that like certain very large public cloud providers haven't reduced their service prices since I think 2014. So
exactly,
that's, they're just going to lose ground on that. And you compare that to the point, whereas if you're a Zadara customer, for instance, and you go through an upgrade, which is free, to a new technology, you sort of peeked around the corner on the NVMe stuff. If somebody a month and a half from now or whatever a Zadara customer upgrades to NVMe, and the NVMe is actually cheaper capacity than the existing flash, their bill will go down. That doesn't happen in the clouds.
Right.
Right. Now, on the traditional storage, one of the biggest things is the pre-buying capacity that you don't need yet. Because you can't scale fast, you tend to have to overbuy, and that's the one thing. So it's a requirement. But as people that have been in storage nearly as long as I have will tell you, prepaying for storage is about the dumbest thing you can do, because the one thing you do know is, unless it's certain public cloud storage, it's going to be cheaper later. So don't buy it before you need to. So those kind of economic things get rolled into that curve, and that's why you see that kind of result.
So I think we've given a pretty good tour. Let's summarize. What do we say? There's no time. Let's sum up.
No, but it will take too long. Let's sum up. There's too much.
There's too much. And there's a lot to unpack here, but we hope that everybody who's visited today and had a chance to spend some time with us will come away understanding that creating an effective hybrid cloud storage scheme involves asking questions that are different than the kinds of questions you need to ask if you're operating a legacy storage scheme, or if you're just operating a pure public cloud storage scheme, something that's more narrowly focused. Hybrid is by definition something that crosses boundaries, and if you're going to attempt to operate storage that can cross those boundaries, you really need a system that's been designed to do that. That's what we're in business to do around here. That's what we love doing. That's our mission. And I would encourage everybody, if you have more questions, please reach out to us either via the website, like we mentioned earlier, or give us a call, and you can talk with one of our sales representatives here and our solutions architects as well, who can help you understand how your needs might map to our solutions. All right, with that, I want to thank you, everybody, and for those of you attending VMworld, we look forward to seeing you next week there.
All right, yeah, thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, bye-bye.